Girls, children of all ages, Clipper Blog Live is back, and we are returning with the end of the free agent moratorium period to announce the indecision of DeAndre Jordan. With us from Las Vegas, weighing in at, or screw all that. We got Fred Katz here,
on
hanging
on the
out.
on the floor in DeAndre Jordan's bedroom. Actually, just I've been peeking on all of them the whole time. AKA my iPad in my hotel room in Vegas has to be charged, and the wire doesn't reach anywhere where I can sit down. So we're doing this from the ground.
We are literally doing this from the ground in Vegas. And also, Brandon, I don't even know where you are right now, man.
I'm
You
in
look
Los
like
Angeles.
you in LA too?
I'm in LA.
Mark Cuban show up to your crib yet?
Nope. I heard he's driving around. He's still trying to get a hold of my folks to see where we are at.
All right, and I'm gonna host this. I'm Law Murray. I'm also in Los Angeles. I can't leave. I can't leave. Look, Fred and Brandon are keeping me hostage. Okay? I mean, the door is open, but it's not open. So we just gonna get into this. First reactions. What were y'all doing at 9 a.m. Pacific time today? Start with you, Fred.
I was asleep on an airplane, and I slept the first 3 hours of my flight because I had an early flight this morning. And I woke up and I was like, I'm gonna turn on the Wi-Fi and see if I miss any news or whatever. And I turn on the Wi-Fi and I go to Twitter.
And that's Fred. We're gonna let Fred get himself back together. Brandon.
Yeah, I was driving to work. I had just checked Twitter like right before it all happened. Said, okay, it's just another Wednesday. Headed to work. Got in. Checked Twitter again, and then all of this happened and started to happen, and I just couldn't believe it. It was, I mean, it's not. I'm not gonna say it's like the first time that and proof on the proof came out later that this isn't the first time that someone has backed out on free agency and had a change of heart. But I think this is the first time in the Twitter era, and because of that, it just made it so intriguing, and I could not take my eyes off of Twitter the whole rest of the day.
I mean, okay, so as you all have figured out, we're not really going to talk about Wes Johnson. We may talk about Paul, but this is not time to talk about the summer league. The Clippers are 1-3 for all of you here. Brandon Dawson looks pretty well. He looks like he's going to get a roster spot. We have to chronicle the fact that this dude definitely reneged on a deal, and over the course of, I guess, 48 hours, he started to come back. Fred, first off, to say you were emotionally distraught about this probably is an understatement, but let's hear it coming from you. The news broke Friday afternoon that DJ was going to leave Dallas. Obviously, I don't have a soul, so I can't relate to what the feeling was like when I thought this was expected. I thought DJ was going to leave. So take us through your emotions Friday, and then obviously you posted something on Clipper Blog before the holiday weekend.
Yeah, it made sense to me that DJ would leave. I understood the reasoning behind it, and I understood kind of the momentum that it was going in. But because the Clippers signed Paul Pierce, I kind of thought that to be a sign that DJ was going to come back, because I couldn't imagine why Pierce, even though playing for Dot Connection, that he's from California, I still couldn't imagine why Pierce, and maybe his last will probably be his last ever contract in the NBA, why he would come to a team that had one big man and was in a terrible position to contend for anything other than a bottom of the West playoff spot. So I figured Pierce coming means that they had gotten assurance from DeAndre that he was going to come back. And so when he signed when he agreed to terms with the Mavs, I was a little surprised, and I didn't really understand the basketball reasoning behind it. Now people are talking about Dan Fagan's potential hand in it, DeAndre's agent. I actually was talking to one agent who texted me some not so flattering stuff about Fagan last week, and so I started looking into it and remembered the whole Chandler Parsons thing and the Dwight Howard stuff and figured that could have a hand in it. And now we're kind of seeing that was a possibility from other reporters who have much better sources than I do. It was a weird scenario, and then it got even weirder today, right? I mean, Brandon, it was the weirdest thing ever.
No, I mean it was enough that to follow just based on the news that was coming in from the multiple sources and the journalism side. And then when it got into like emoji land, that was when it just went a completely different direction. And I mean, I was like salivating looking at Twitter trying to see what the next update was going to be. And I had no expectation of what to expect. And just the whole time, I was just looking like, what's next? And I just wanted to refresh over and over again to find out what the next tidbit was. And reading it, you would see some news come out, and then maybe there'd be something else that would either support it or it would be counter, and it just kind of built it. I've never seen anything like it.
Now, for me, first thing this morning, because I never really answered this question, but I had the same time hop, and days like today, it was pretty cool because 5 years ago today was LeBron James' decision. You know, he had the special, and we all knew what was going down as far as like us having to sit and watch the whole thing, and then the fallout was obviously something that stuck with us as much as him actually announcing it in that Boys and Girls Club. The thing that caught my eye, though, was when Ramona Shelburne tweeted out the whole DJ got a call, or DJ called Doc and told him that he wasn't sure about this. And when I saw that, that's when I was like, okay, you know what? This isn't going to go away. This actually might happen, and we might have to keep our eyes on it. Fred, I gotta ask you. You got the phone. You're Doc Rivers. You're getting a phone call from DJ. What are you telling him? What are you planning for this, or are you ready for this? And then, what's the execution? What's the plan for the rest of the week?
You know what's funny? I was thinking about when I was writing the DeAndre piece for Clipper Blog, which was just like emotional. I've been whilst writing something in a very long time. Same
right.
Response, and I was thinking, did I just cut out? I think I'm
back. Yeah, we're
just cut out.
Good right now.
It's the hotel internet. Look, as long as they don't turn on the black light while I'm lying on the floor, I'm not going to complain about anything. But I don't know where I cut out, but I was thinking when I was writing that DeAndre piece for Clipper Blog on Friday or Saturday, whenever that was, that I was wondering if DeAndre called me to apologize or just talk as, for a friend or mentor to student or whatever it is. I don't know how I would have reacted to that. So I think it's kind of, amazing that Doc was able to turn this around. Obviously, the initiative came from DeAndre calling him first, but, for all of the criticism that I think all of us, or at least, I'll just put it on myself, for all the criticism I've given of Doc as an executive. I've always been positive of him as a coach. I think he's a very good coach. But of him as an executive, this was, it might have been sleazy. Probably was sleazy. But this was a good job. I mean, he turned a guy, right? That's not something that happens very often. I think what's interesting is that DeAndre's or Doc's worst trait as an executive is and go with me on this because I'm formulating this as I say it. But Doc's worst trait as an executive is obviously just his ability to evaluate players. And his best trait as a coach is, I think we'd all agree, his ability to handle egos and personalities. And this is one of those scenarios where his best trait as a coach actually translated over to his ability to help as an exec. The way that he probably handled the personalities in this scenario, the complications between DeAndre and Chris Paul and the insanely awkward scenario this is for DeAndre. Like, if there's a press conference, it's going to be the most awkward presser ever. Because when he's going to say, oh, I wanted to be back, he's not going to say, I wanted to be back. I always wanted to be back. That's obviously not true. You agree with the Mavs. So I wanted to be back. I 80% wanted to be back is really the answer, So it's the way that he kind of massaged that situation. I assume as time goes forward, we're going to find out exactly what happened, and we're going to find out more information about what was said, during the kidnapping. But something worked. Something worked, and I think you got to give him some amount of credit, even if you also say if you believe that was a sleazy move.
Brandon, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, Fred, when you wrote on that Clipper blog article, one of the things that you mentioned was how, well, you compared DJ to Frankenstein's monster. And with that, it was just the building up and what Doc has really done the past 2 years in terms of building DJ up and making him really believe that he can be this player. I was reading something today on Draft Express about DJ and the type of personality type that he is, and one of the things it mentions there is he's very big on trust. And if you look back the past 2 years and Doc, one of the things that he has done in terms of building up DJ is to build that level of trust, bringing him into the core of the team and making it a big three instead of just Blake and CP. And you look at the accolades that he got at the end of the season, first team all defense, all of that, that happens because of Doc and the trust that Doc instills. Trust is such a big factor to DJ, it makes sense that the moment that he starts having doubts, that he would want to reach out to Doc, because if it's someone that he trusts that much, that's someone he feels like he can rely on to talk to in full disclosure. So I mean, it is awkward because now he's talking to an old exec or an old coach in this case, but clearly because of the moratorium period, as strange as it is, because nobody has put pen to paper yet, there's still that chance. And this isn't the first time that someone has left money on the table and changed their minds and went to a different team.
So here's what I'm taking away. Trust, relationships. I mean, we talk often about relationships are everything in sports, especially in media, in the locker rooms, and beyond that. This is obviously one of the reasons why, probably more than most of the Clipper blog staff, I've not given Doc that hard of a time as far as him being a GM, because I felt like if something like this was going to go down, he'd be the person I'd want to pull the strings. We weren't worried about Doc, though. We weren't worried about Doc, Brandon. We were worried about Chris. Last week, and really since the season ended, I think Bill Ryder, he pretty much was he was coming at dudes hard with the Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan rift. And I think we all kind of was like, yeah, we feel it, we knew it. We saw the same vine at the end of I think it was the Trailblazers game that wound up going into overtime. And we know Chris has a reputation for riding guys hard. And we were like, well, if he leaves, it's going to be on Chris. So let me start the conversation like this. How much more important did those relationships prove to be? And maybe this is a slightly more loaded and less related question. Does Chris Paul's reputation get a boost over these last 24 hours, or are you still concerned about Chris in any way?
I think people are looking at it in a way that they're still skeptical. The story's already been out there. Going into next season, it's going to be in the back of people's minds. They're going to look at it and wonder how much of any mention of a rift is actually there, what has been repaired in the off season, and how much more a chasm can grow if there really is such a thing. I don't feel like anybody that has gone out to admit that there is a rift is going to go back on their story. They're going to continue and say, I reported this. I believe this to be true. My sources, quote-unquote sources, say this is true. I have no reason to not believe any other way. That said, it's also hard to tell, considering the anonymity that these sources have, who is it coming from? For instance, if a lot of this is coming from Dan Fegan, then it almost seems agenda-based because of his ties to Mark Cuban, his ties to the other players that are signing with the Mavs or are on the Mavs. And then you wonder, is he the one putting these stories out there because he wants to build that up to incentivize any sort of departure from the Clippers? And it looked like that a lot earlier when there were stories coming out, I would say in the early part of the day. One of the people I follow, Michael Eaves, former Fox Sports West reporter and Clippers broadcaster that's now on ESPN, he had this barrage of tweets where he talked a lot about that, and it really makes you think that, in a way, DJ was pushed by his agent to make these decisions and to make the decisions so fast. I mean, for someone in their mid to late 20s to have to make an $80+ million decision for the next 4 or 5 years of his life overnight, I mean, it's not to that player's benefit to make that decision so hastily. And when you look at it, who does it incentivize? It incentivizes the other people that are willing to commit to other teams and also sign, because now it allows agents to figure out where all their other players are supposed to go. It's not in the player's favor.
Also, guys, I don't know if you just saw, there was just a Woj bomb. DeAndre's contract details are 4 years, $88 million, has a 15% trade kicker, player option on the 4th year, so it's a 3+1, which is interesting because that Mavs deal was originally reported as 4 for the full max, and it wasn't a 3+1. So interesting. I hope somebody asks next time DeAndre talks or next time Doc talks why that changed from a 4-year deal to a 3+1. That'll be interesting.
So, Fred, I'll tell you what. Another thing that was interesting is something that you saw on the Clipper blog about. It was one in our comment section, and it was basically the way contracts were structured and how guys could pretty much, team up elsewhere in the next couple of years regarding Parsons, DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin. Do you feel like that is still kind of on the table, even though DeAndre is back? And do you feel as if this thing with relativity sports and the Clippers is going to result in some bad karma down the road here?
Well, the first thing, I never really thought that was real. That was just kind of I think conspiracy theories are fun, and I saw that. I was like, oh, that's fun.
Hey,
No, I don't think it's real. DeAndre's got 3 more guaranteed years on his contract. Blake's got 2. So DeAndre's going to be up for, 2017, 18? He could be, unless he picks up a player option. So, the year after that, so 2018. Nah, I mean, who knows what the financial environment's going to be then anyway, because there's probably going to be a lockout in 2017. So it's kind of impossible for me to forecast what's going to be going on there in terms of cap situations and all that kind of stuff. For all we know, what the Caps are projecting now, the 109 number, people talk about that like it's definitive, and it's definitely going to be 109. We don't know that for sure, because if there's a lockout in 2017, that could all change, and stuff could end up happening with the cap to make it, lower, so it doesn't actually jump from, about $90 million in 2016 to whatever it's going to be in 2017. So that kind of stuff that people talk about definitively, I don't know. Nobody really knows, and that's kind of the point. What was your second question, though?
My bad. I loaded them up. So second question is basically, we're dealing with agents. You mentioned at the top.
Oh, right, dealing with relativity sports. It's a good question. I don't know. I think they're obviously going to have to deal with relativity sports again. Hey, they're going to have to do it real soon, because you know who Austin Rivers' agent is? Dan Fegan. So that is going to be real fun. What I hope is that the Mavs just offer Austin Rivers a max contract, just as like a knife to Doc, and see what happens.
You know what's going to happen? They're not going to match it.
Just
or offer, they can't match it anyway.
Right. Well, I hope the Mavs, just as like to stick it to Doc, just offer Austin Rivers, because the Clippers can only offer him up to $3.1 million. Just offer him $10 million for 2 years, and Austin is like, I'm gonna turn down $10 million for 2 years just to play for my dad. I'm taking that money. that would just be such a great storyline. But yeah, I think that stuff tends to resolve itself. Honestly, like there are a lot of rivalries between agencies and teams, guys who don't get along particularly well. But if there's something that's mutually beneficial, I don't think that most of these people are far too smart to cut off their nose to spite their face. And if there's a mutually beneficial deal going on, then I think they end up, sucking it up and making it happen because they'll make money from it. So, and that's really the end goal for the agencies, and the team will get the player they want, which is the end goal for the team. So, I'm sure there'll be some sort of strain in the relationship, but I don't know how consequential it will be.
All right, and okay, so Brandon, check this out.
Okay.
You're DeAndre Jordan. All these guys, they didn't come to the meeting last week, and of course, that's not a bad thing in a vacuum. We talked about the relationships before. It's not like Clippers players they let DeAndre know how they felt last week. Obviously, the full court press was put on by the Mavs. Now you're getting all these guys coming in. We saw the Blake tweets. We saw the JJ coming from Austin and driving. We saw Chris Paul coming from vacation. Hell, even Mike Woodson swimming over from Orlando. Yeah. I'm not even sure if that was legit or not. And then my personal favorite, Paul Pierce clip arting a rocket and making sure he got there. But I'll tell you what, I will say Paul had the best ones at the end because he actually tweeted what I needed to see, which is photograph proof that he was actually signing the contract.
That's right.
Brandon, just to turn it up a little bit, have you ever been courted like that for anything? Now, we're not even talking a contract. We're just talking your birthday, man.
No. Can't even come up with the story right now. I think the most exciting thing is probably going to a job fair and being cornered by 3 people at a company that I was interested in working for. And I mean, they had a lot of questions. It felt almost like an inquisition more than it was any sort of full court press to court me. So I can't think of anything like that's happened for me. But looking at it from DJ's point of view, I mean, I get it. We were going back talking last week about it, saying that the strongest, the biggest advantage the Clippers had was Doc Rivers, and it seemed that way. And if he sees Blake on a daily basis and the other players are already tight, then maybe he doesn't feel like, maybe the other players feel like they don't need to step over themselves to impress when they spend so much daily time with DJ as it is. And maybe Doc looks at it and says, hey, I'm the one that he has the most trust with, just leave me in a room with him, and maybe that's a choice thing. But it didn't work out that way, and then when they saw that what he wanted was the audience, I mean, today,
I want to know what Law, you said your favorite tweet was the Paul Pierce rocket?
Heck yeah.
What was Brandon? What was it? Mine was actually probably mine was either the Chris Paul banana boat one because that was amazing and so unexpected because like you don't think of Chris Paul as funny at all, and that was hilarious. And I thought the second Paul Pierce clip art thing was incredible. It was funnier than the first one because it showed it was like the ultimate like it was basically the Twitter emoji equivalent of like an old man backing up out of the driveway and just not looking back and just being like, screw it, I don't care who I run over, I'm old, I don't care. And like obviously he knew he was not sending out a real emoji the second time, but still like, screw it, I'm sending this out anyway. It was great. That was hilarious. Brandon, what was your favorite?
For me, I definitely agree with you on the banana boat. I thought the banana boat was awesome, but after it looked like we were reaching a conclusion, I loved seeing some of the tweets that were coming out about what was really happening or what was supposed to be really happening at DJ's house. Stuff like how the meeting didn't really take that long, and the rest of the time the guys were just there playing cards. And that was from Waj. The other one was from Arash Markazi saying things like the meeting didn't take long and the rest of the time was spent teaching Paul Pierce how to use emojis on his phone. So that stuff to me was hilarious. On top of that, it's always good to see when there's really good GIFs or just memes or just stuff from from us like the Peanut Gallery that really make and enrich that experience. And Nick _ Pants, he took one of my favorite scenes from The Simpsons and he turned it into a scene with DeAndre, where DeAndre is it's the scene where Grandpa Simpson is walking into the brothel, and Bart is actually at the brothel at the time, and he's the doorman. So Grandpa Simpson walks in, sees Bart, and then he walks right out. And what Nick Pants did was that he put Mark Cuban's head on Bart, and he put DJ's face on Grandpa Simpson walking in, then walking back out. And I thought that was hilarious. I probably spent a good 30 seconds just laughing at that gif.
So I was gonna get into questions and comments. So if people have tweeted at us, if people have gone to Clipper Blog and actually sent us a question, I will get to these right after this last one for Fred and Brandon Live, and that is, how do we feel about the Dallas Mavericks? Do we feel bad for them? Do we feel like we're gonna laugh at them? Or do we kind of just want to get this out of the way? This isn't about you guys. Sorry I had to be y'all, but this is the Clippers that we're talking about. This stuff happens in reverse to the Clippers all the time. So how do we feel about Mark Cuban and Dallas in this situation?
Well,
I feel bad for them.
Okay, go ahead.
I feel bad. I feel bad for them. I mean, they got screwed. There's no other way to put it. There's nothing they could have done about this, right? This is completely out of their hands. They got royally screwed. It sucks for them, and now they have no backup. What's their backup plan? The backup plan is Kevin Seraphin. They're in the same position the Clippers were in before this, only even worse because they don't have two top 10 players to fall back on. They went from contending for a playoff spot in the West to they're not a playoff team in the West now, and who knows if there's going to be some sort of domino effect, and what's going to happen with Wes Matthews, because none of these deals are legally binding, as we very well know now. Who knows if there's some sort of trickle down effect. It's unfortunate for them because I actually really like Mark Cuban. I think he's incredibly smart. He cares a lot about winning, and he runs an organization the right way, and that organization is one of the best in the entire league. In my mind, that's one of the Spurs are obviously, the best, and no one is in the Spurs league. But to me, the Magic are in that next. The Mavericks are in that next tier with the Heat, and those are just amazing and incredibly intelligent and super progressive organizations who treat their players incredibly well. So I realize that Cuban's kind of an aggressive personality, and a lot of people don't like him, but that organization as a whole treats its players as well as any organization in the league, and I don't know if it necessarily deserves to be treated like this, but at the same time, I guess DJ's got to do what's best for him. He didn't have to go about it in the way that he did. The thing that I judge him for isn't necessarily him changing his mind. It's him not saying anything to Cubans or Donnie Nelsons or Rick Carlisle's or even Chandler Parsons' face. That to me is kind of a character flaw in DeAndre and something I judge him for a little bit until we get more information. Maybe there's a more legitimate reason why he didn't do that, and I'll change my mind on it or retract that statement. But for now, at least Dwight Howard flew to Los Angeles to tell Mitch Kupchak that he was signing with Houston. And just a phone call would have been fine. And so I get why Cuban or anybody involved would be fuming. I'd be as mad as I could possibly be.
Brandon?
Yeah, it's hard not to feel bad in a way for Cuban, especially considering the history that the Mavericks have had striking out with marquee free agents, and they've done it so many times. Darren Williams was one. Dwight Howard, and now DeAndre. I mean, it just follows a line of players that Mark Cuban has tried to bring to an organization that's run incredibly well, and yet they always strike out with the marquee free agents, and it's just been one after the other after the other. At the same time, I look at it, and if I want to think of a counterpoint, I wonder, should that decision have come in one night? And maybe if there wasn't such pressure for him to come up with a quick decision, that for DJ to come up with a quick decision, that a lot more provisioning in case DJ didn't go to the Mavs could have happened, in a sense where there wouldn't have been rushes to have Roy Hibbert lined up to go to the Lakers and all of that. I mean, the way this folded out, which is from a hasty decision that followed up with second thoughts and regrets. I mean, that allowed 3, 4, 5 days of time to happen in between, where a lot of free agency movement happened. And I mean, so that's bad on DJ, but that's bad on the Mavs too. I mean, for DJ, it's definitely some immaturity. Maybe he wants to be too much of a people pleaser, and he wants to avoid that conflict, and that's really unfair to the Mavs. But at the same time, it's hard for me to not be a bit on the player's side of things when such a big decision is lined up in front of them, and they have everything to lose, at least a lot more to lose than the owners do.
Look,
one thing, Law, let me cut you off for 1 sec.
Yeah.
One thing that Brandon brought up, which I think is interesting, which is something I've been thinking about, is, there's the rush to get it done by 12:01, right? I don't understand why that rush exists. I mean, everyone else is basically already signed. The teams aren't freaking out about it. I understand why the rush exists for the teams. But for DeAndre, I don't understand why he thought he had to get it done by 12:01, which kind of, he could have held it out. He doesn't have to. It's not like you have to sign by 12:01. He could have waited another week if he wanted to, and then signed in the middle of July. To me, that makes me think this wasn't a decision that was made in one night. And some of the stuff that we saw from Ramona Shelburne and Woj tweeting about how they weren't actually meeting for very long and they were just playing cards and just kind of waiting to sign makes me think that DeAndre made his decision before today. And that today was just kind of what put him over the top, or at least that DeAndre was leaning heavily toward the Clippers even after committing to the Mavs. Because there shouldn't have to be a rush. And I mean, everyone else is already signed. Like, what, are they going to freak out over getting JaVale McGee? Like, JaVale McGee can wait. If DeAndre hasn't signed, JaVale McGee is going to wait. Like, all those guys are going to wait for the big domino to go first. So it shouldn't have mattered. So that kind of makes me think that it wasn't as rash of a decision as it seems, but maybe it was, because DeAndre's going back and forth. It's kind of like with the Dwight Orlando thing when he opted in. Everyone was just, what? Like, it's just kind of this back and forth thing. So it's hard to judge because he was so indecisive that you don't know, but at least judging from that, it makes me think that he made up his decision before today.
Yeah, and to follow up what you were saying, it sounded like, based on some of Ramona's tweets as well, that the decision might have been made already by Tuesday, and that because the Jordan family had a 10-day trip lined up that's starting tomorrow, that maybe he just wanted to get the contract out of the way so he could just enjoy his vacation before coming back.
And I'll tell you what, I do feel a little bad for Dallas Mavericks fans, their fan base. Mark Cuban's done an outstanding job in making us forget how bad that team was in the 1990s. Okay, when we're talking about the Clippers and we're talking about the Mavericks, we're talking about the worst team in the 80s and the worst team in the 90s. Anybody who's played NBA Jam knows exactly what I'm talking about for the Mavericks. So, they might be entering a period where, I mean, once you drop out, you don't quite know when you're going to get it back. I mean, just 10 years ago, the Minnesota Timberwolves had a winning season. They haven't made the playoffs since 2004. They might start getting out of it these next couple of years, but that's kind of what Dallas is facing. I don't think the Clippers were ever truly facing that. the other thing that I'd be worried about for the Clippers is they'll be the base god. I mean, let's just not. I'm not even going to spite anybody. It's the night for y'all to celebrate, Clippers fans. But I'd be I'd be trying to charm that dude for the rest of the off season if I were y'all. Let me get to these comments, man, because people have been with us for about well over a half hour. We've got some healthy ones. And it starts with Mr. Take a Pic, post as an emoji. Welcome back, DJ, has asked us, what do we think about the Clippers' official signing of Paul Pierce? Who said it's official yet? But the official signing of Paul Pierce, how much of leadership and experience will he be providing for the team? Brandon, let's start with you.
I definitely feel the veteran presence is there, and I think in terms of being a locker room presence and just a calming presence for a lot of people that have, for a lot of the players, because a lot of players haven't been as far into the playoffs as Paul Pierce has. I feel like I'm just rehashing a lot of cliche veteran leadership type things, but he is definitely the old man of the house right now, and there is something to be said about that. He might not be that much of an impact player for the regular season, but come playoff time, he is clutch. There's probably fewer players that were available, especially at the price that they got him at, to that are going to contribute as much or have shown that they can contribute as much historically than the player that they got.
I do think his leadership for Lance Stevenson specifically is going to be important. But he also brings from a basketball sense. Paul Pierce is still a good player. He's not Kendrick Perkins where you're just bringing him in for the veteran leadership. Paul Pierce is good, and he's not. People think of him as he's just going to hit the clutch shot. He's not Robert Ory. He's legitimately good. He's still a very good shooter, and he can still handle the ball a little bit. And if he's your tertiary option on offense, that's pretty darn good. And you can argue he might be their fourth option with DJ back, with him rolling at the rim like that. He's going to get open looks. He's got some positional versatility now because he's really good, but he's actually better when he plays the 4 than when he plays the 3. Gives the Clippers better options of being able to go small than they could when they would occasionally put Matt Barnes at the 4. Now they can consistently put Pierce at the 4 in moments when they really want to, and play Blake at the 5 or DeAndre at the 5, or it just opens up your lineup possibilities more. And as we've seen with so many teams that have success now, having options.
I'm sure Fred's going to come back to us. When he does, we'll let him finish. But for right now, Brandon, let me go to this next question here.
Okay.
At the time?
Fred, you back?
Yeah, I'm out. I was out.
No, you're back in.
Oh yeah. Well, I didn't hear.
You were finishing up about Paul, but Vegas caught you.
Yeah.
You know what they say about
caught
Vegas, right, Fred?
What happens in Vegas kills your internet.
Yeah, that's exactly what they say.
Yeah. So I'm doing CBL from lying on the floor right now. This is my I've been lying like this for 40 minutes. My back is killing me.
Dude, did you get room service yet? You ate something?
I got a Subway sandwich after I wrote that DJ article. And that was it. That's all I've eaten. Although I did have In-N-Out animal style for the first time today ever. That was my first time ever having In-N-Out. Gotta say, overrated.
Boo.
I would agree with you.
Not even close to Shake Shack.
Okay,
not even in the same conversation.
I'll give you the Shake Shack, but I still love In-N-Out for what it is.
Shake Shack is coming to California, so I hear, and it's going to put that thing out of business. It is so much. I guess In-N-Out's a little bit cheaper, but not cheaper enough that I would it was it was $2 or $3 cheaper than when I go to Shake Shack. Not even close. Shake Shack is so much better.
Oh my goodness!
I don't even remember what we were talking about.
Yeah, before one of you guys signed an endorsement deal, let's move on to this next question. So, Brandon, from Champagne Emoji, first of all, Clipper Blog, You guys are really on it with the names. I'm just going to shout all you guys out because we're not getting to all your questions. It's just not going to happen. But shout out to Welcome Back DJ, Champagne Emoji, Euroclips, All CBL Third Team Byron Mullen, and other names that we probably shouldn't mention live on our airways. Toast to you guys. Now, Brandon, should we trade, and we definitely not being me, definitely referring to the Clippers. Apparently, Champagne Emoji signed a new contract too. Should the Clippers trade? Jamal is expiring to double down on defense, and is there a scenario where the Clippers end up with a top 10 defense? They were not top 10 last season. They were about 16th, I want to say, 15th, 16th.
15.
So go ahead, Brandon.
I feel like, at least in terms of, I'll answer the defense question first, and I would say that I still don't see the top 10 defense happening, whether they bring somebody in or not. I feel that in terms of the free agency market, whoever is left on those lists, probably not someone they can bring in that is elite defensively that's really going to help them out. The small forward I was hoping that they had a chance at was Al-Farouq Aminu, and he got snatched at day one for, I think, a lot more money than a lot of teams that were looking at him expected him to sign for. I think one of the issues is always going to be the bench, and the bench defense is going to bring that defensive rating down. On top of the bench, though, because that's been discussed a lot, and that's sort of a given. Blake's defense, not very good. And as long as DJ has to cover for multiple people in the starting rotation as well, then you're going to get into situations where just the mishaps and the miscues from having lackluster defense from a Blake, and you're not going to take out Blake that's going to hurt the team, and that's going to lower the defensive rating. They're just not going to be that good of a team unless Blake really locks in, and I think that's a sporadic thing. That's not a consistent 82-game thing that we can look forward to. What was the first question again?
First question was, what are you going to do with
Jamal, yeah. I don't know. I think his final year is. I think his final year is kind of shot now. I think the time to trade him probably would have been before June 30th, so that his contract wasn't fully guaranteed. And I still have questions about how he's actually going to work with Lance Stevenson, because Lance Stevenson needs the ball in his hands very much, and that's what really helped him when he was running in Indiana. When he was on the Pacers, he was ball dominant, and it worked to the team's favor. But you can't have that and Jamal being ball dominant as well. It's not going to work out, or at least I have yet to see how it's going to work out. I know there's been a lot of talk about the Brandon Haywood trade, but with DJ back in the fold, I know that that makes the Clippers a tax team now, and that makes it harder for them to make a trade, even if they throw other pieces in, to try and get value back if they want to, make the trade for Haywood and then trade Haywood back out for someone else's contract that wants to salary dump. I can't think of any moves that they can do with Jamal at this time that would really shore up that defense.
So, Fred, we actually discussed a little bit of this, and Fred has temporarily dropped out. Those vultures are definitely circling on this show. Contracts have been signed. So, Brandon, I'm going to give you one last question before we get on out of here for the night, and that is, to McGee or not to McGee? So we're talking about the bench. We're talking about the fact that DeAndre is already here. We're talking about defense, and we're talking about the fact that the Clippers still don't have a backup big man. Like even Brandon Dawson, the second-round pick, who is undersized but kind of killing it at power forward, it's not like he's guaranteed a deal. Does JaVale make any sense in this scenario?
In the time between Friday and today, when it looked like DJ wasn't coming back, in a way, I kind of talked myself into believing that McGee would be an okay pickup for the team. I think you can't, of course, you can't teach height. The size is there, and knowing Doc and his ability to kind of reclaim big men and how he's really done a good job in that regard. I think it's worth the shot. Maybe if they can get him, I guess the question is health for McGee as well. On a personal standpoint, I've looked through McGee's Instagram. I know he's a big video gamer. He loves Mario Kart, Street Fighter. So I think there's that side that is endearing to me. But really, I just think it's just worth the risk if he's healthy. Worst case is they can get rid of him and find someone else out there. But in terms of what other choices there really aren't that many. So why not take a flyer?
All right, so Fred, real quick, just to catch you up, the question is about JaVale McGee.
No.
You bring him
No.
in. No.
No.
No. Follow. Hey, let me get a follow-up question in. This isn't about JaVale anymore. This ain't about JaVale.
Follow up.
We were talking about Jamal before Vegas caught you. I don't know if it was a tiger or a monkey or something, but you got caught out. But
your understanding of what happens in Las Vegas is terrible.
Oh, I'm gonna learn so much next week or two. But listen, Jamal Crawford, we know that his contract is fully guaranteed for next season. We know that the Clippers have obviously been trying to figure out a way to move him if possible. We know that Jamal has been sending some cryptic, very stream of consciousness tweets. This is what Jamal does usually anyway, but obviously it takes a little bit more meaning because it's not like he was coming to Houston to recruit DJ to come back. We talked last week about different big men who are somewhat more than fringe players that could possibly come to the Clippers, being that now there's only two big men instead of one. How do you feel about that, and what more do the Clippers need to do this offseason?
Yeah, I think you obviously look into trading him. I don't know what his value is. He was really bad last year, and he was pretty dreadful in the playoffs.
And he was 35.
Yeah, I mean he was, but it's a 1-year deal, 5.7, and he still can score in streaks. It was a weird season. It kind of reminded me of his last year in Portland a little bit with the way that he played, and he ended up playing more point guard than usual, which he will be the first one to admit that he's not comfortable doing, and I think that can hurt him. And that's actually exactly what happened to him in Portland because Raymond Felton was so bad that year, and they ended up playing Johnny Flynn at point guard that year. It was so dreadful, and Jamal ended up basically being the backup point, and he just kind of lost it. And that's pretty much what happened this year, and he lost his efficiency. So maybe he comes back and has another good year because his first 2 years with the Clippers, he was great. And so I could see a team justifying that, but I don't really know what his value is. Even guys of his type are always higher valued in the general public than they are the team execs. Look at Lou Williams getting Sixth Man of the Year and then only getting $21 million for 3 years on the open in this market. In a market, he basically got the same amount of money as Aaron Baines. This is not a league which values that much what Jamal does anymore. So I don't know what you can do. I think if you can make that Brendan Haywood trade with the ability, the already known ability to flip something, if you can work a 3-way deal or something that sends Brendan Haywood to Miami, Jamal to Cleveland, and brings you like Josh McRoberts, then I think you do that. You take a risk on McRoberts coming off a bad injury season and hope he can be what he was in Charlotte 2 years ago, which is totally plausible. But I think you have to do it with something else really in mind if you're just going to trade him for a guy like Haywood. I don't know if he's going to work next to Lance Stevenson either. And both those guys like to handle the ball, and especially if you're going to bring back Austin Rivers, those three guys in the same bench unit, it just sounds disastrous to me. I don't know if that's really going to work, which is why I kind of think you do have to prioritize trading him, but I don't think they should just give him away. He still has value on this team.
All right. Well, I think we're at the point, guys, where we got to shut it down. I'm pretty sure DJ, Blake, Chris, Paul, Doc, Balmer, maybe even Woodson, they've shut it down. Um, any parting shots, though, as far as the rest of this week and the fact that throughout this indecision, DeAndre Jordan apparently is officially back with the Clippers. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we didn't give Mike Woodson any dap for his emoji tweet. I cannot believe I did not wake up this morning thinking that I was going to be referencing a Mike Woodson emoji tweet on CBL. So good for Mike Woodson getting in the game.
Yeah,
Mike Woodson can tweet emojis, but Paul Pierce can't. That is an incredible thing that I never would have guessed.
Brandon, take us out of here.
I think it's just looking at the rest of the roster now and looking at the Summer League team in Orlando the past few games, there's definitely some intriguing pieces. I think Liam McMorrow is interesting because of his size and raw athleticism. Walters, prior to the injury that he had for today's game, he looked quite promising. And really, considering the lack of options, maybe it's time to take a flyer on a couple of these guys.
Hey, all I know is we are done. We are done. DJ signed. I'm sure the trolls are going to find infinite reasons to come at the Clippers for Doc the GM, for Chris Paul, for Blake, everything. Well, haters, we gave y'all another one. So, with that, Brandon Tomjoy in Los Angeles, Fred Katz in Vegas. I'm Law Murray. This has been Clipper Block Live. I can't tell you next time we'll see y'all, but when we do see you, we will be live. Good night.